Hello, Year 4. Welcome to Tuesday's English lesson today. Today we're going to continue thinking about that story that we started watching yesterday, A Saga of Bjorn. So let's just remind ourselves then, what is it that Bjorn wants? What's he looking for? And who does he need? Can you remember? Yes, you're right. Bjorn wants to finish his life and end up in the glorious Valhalla, doesn't he? But he knows in order to get that, he needs to have an honourable death. He needs to die as a courageous warrior in battle. So the who does he need? He needs a Viking warrior that's going to be strong enough to be able to defeat him and send him to the glorious Valhalla. Now, we saw in the video yesterday that a number of Viking warriors have tried and applied for the job, and they just weren't good enough. There were a number of reasons as to why. Either they weren't strong enough, they weren't clever enough, they weren't wise enough. But all of the Viking warriors that so far have applied for the job are just not cutting it. So we know that Bjorn is getting a little bit desperate now. He needs to find the mightiest, the strongest, and the bravest warrior that he can in order to send him to Valhalla. And you can see that those are adjectives that I chose there. I purposely chose them because that's going to be the focus of our learning today. Because today we're going to be thinking about adding that suffix est, the est, onto the end of words, onto our adjectives to turn them into superlatives. So superlatives is probably a new bit of learning for you. So we're going to have a bit of a practice at that for today in order for the first part of our lesson. And we're going to be thinking about how we can use superlatives in order to be able to describe a Viking warrior. And you can see there I've said that Bjorn dreams of going through those gates to Valhalla, but he needs somebody that's going to be braver and stronger and mightier than him. And in order to do that, we are going to be using superlatives to describe the warrior that we think is going to fit that job best. Okay, so what I want you to start off by thinking of is the warrior of Bjorn. How would you describe him? So I just want you to pause the video and I want you to come up with 5 adjectives that you think describe Bjorn the best. Pause now. Okay, welcome back. I wonder if your 5 adjectives are the same as my 5 adjectives. So if I was to describe Bjorn, how might I describe him? I might describe him as being strong. Oh, there's the spelling of strong. There we go. I might describe him to be strong. I might also describe him as mighty. I might describe him as being powerful. I might describe him as being wise. And finally, my final adjective, I'm going to describe him as being vicious. Okay, so I've chosen my 5 adjectives. I wonder if they match your 5 adjectives. Perhaps you've come up with completely different ones. So we're going to have lots and lots of ways to describe Bjorn. We're going to be exploring today then how we can use the suffix est to turn these adjectives into superlatives. So in order to do that, we're going to need to find out exactly what superlative means, aren't we? So the word superlative is a way of describing somebody or something in a way that nothing can be better than it. So it is the most of something, okay? So if I was to describe Bjorn as being strong, like I've done here, if somebody else was stronger than him, that would be a comparative superlative. Okay, so I would need to add in the suffix, let's do it in a different colour here, I would need to add in the suffix er in order to make that a comparative adjective. So a warrior that would be stronger than Bjorn, I could compare them, and that would be a comparative adjective, stronger. So I could use the suffix er on the end there to make it comparative. And I could do that with some of my other ones as well. So I could say mightier. Okay, somebody that if I was to compare a different warrior to Bjorn, I might say that they are mightier than Bjorn or wiser than Bjorn. So you can see I can add the suffix er in order to turn it into a comparative adjective. But as I've said today, we're going to be thinking about a superlative. So as I've already explained, the word superlative means where something can't be greater. Okay, and I can do that by adding the est suffix onto the end of an adjective there. So you can see instead of strong, the warrior that can't be any stronger than that would have to be the strongest. Okay, so I've added in the suffix est to transfer my adjective into a superlative, and that means the warrior that comes to defeat Bjorn, there will be nobody that's stronger than them. They are the strongest, so therefore that is a superlative. And I could do the same when it becomes wisest. So somebody that would never be wiser than anybody else, I know that they would have to be wisest. Now I can see that that root word already ends in an E. So I'm going to need to get rid of that E and add my est onto the end there. Okay, so now my superlative now becomes wisest. Nobody can be wiser. Okay, that's why it's a superlative. And I could do the same for mighty, but you'll see, well, mighty ends in a Y. So I need to change my Y to an I before I add my superlative of est. So I can see I've still got that superlative there. Let's change it red so you can see it. And instead of being mighty, nobody is stronger, so therefore they are the mightiest. Okay, so you can see I've been able to add the suffix est to each of those adjectives. Now for some words, you can see other words there that I've chosen, it just doesn't sound right. Powerfulest. It just doesn't sound right. So for that adjective, I can't add the suffix est, and instead, in order to turn it into a superlative, I have to do something completely different. So I've had to add the word most powerful instead, okay, because powerfulest just doesn't sound right. So you'd have to say it aloud to yourself to think about, does my chosen adjective make sense? Okay, and then finally, viciousest. That doesn't sound right either, does it? Okay, so again, I'm going to have to add in there, let's change that, I'm going to have to add in there the word most vicious, okay, to turn that into a superlative. So you can see I've added suffixes to the adjectives in order to turn them into superlatives. Now, not all of them I can use that suffix, so some of them I've had to use the word most instead. Okay, so what I want you to think about is have a go looking at the 5 adjectives that you've just come up with. Can you do the same to yours? Can you turn them into superlatives? Okay, pause now and give that a go. So, how did you get on? I'd be really interested to see some of the superlatives that you come up with. I wonder if they're the same as mine, or I wonder if they're different. So in order to do that then, we need to learn the spelling rule, don't we? And I'm sure you've come up with 5 really good superlatives to describe Bjorn already, and I bet those superlatives could be used to describe the Viking warrior that we know that Bjorn needs to defeat him. Okay, so we're going to be thinking about those in a little while. But today we're going to be thinking about how we spell those words accurately. So we're going to need to remind ourselves of the spelling rule that we need to use when we add suffixes to a word. Now we've already touched on some of that with some of those words that I've looked at here. There were different rules, weren't there, for different words. For strongest, I could just add the suffix on easily. But for wise, I had to do a little bit of changing. And for mighty, I had to do a little bit of changing again. So we're going to explore those rules with this video. Okay, so in a moment we're going to watch a video together and we're going to be thinking about the different rules as to when we add a suffix on. Now we know there's lots of different suffixes. We can see there's an ER suffix, an ED, ING. The suffix we're focusing on today is the est suffix, the EST. And I'm sure you've had a go at adding those. So what I want you to do while you're watching the video in just a moment I want you to listen to the rules that's explained in the video, and then I want you to reflect upon those rules as to your spelling of the 5 words that you've come up with. Do you think after watching the video that you've spelled your 5 words correctly? Or perhaps when you're watching the video you might need to do some editing. Okay, so you might need to change the spelling of your word based on the rules that you hear. Okay, so let's watch the video now.
Learning the rules for adding suffixes can help you become better spellers. So, here's a quick recap of the rules for adding the suffixes ing, ed, est, and y. Rule 1 is that for any word that ends in 2 consonants, you just add the suffix. Words like fast and walk each end with 2 consonants. So, for these words and all the others like them, the rule tells us just add the suffix. Rule 2 helps us with words which end with a short vowel sound. A, e, I, o, followed by a consonant, such as the word hop. The rule for these types of words is that we double the last letter before we add the suffix. So, if you have a rabbit called Hoppy, this rule helps you to remember that Hoppy is spelt with 2 P's. Rule number 3 is for words that end in a consonant, followed by an E, like the word hope. The rule for this kind of word is that the E must be removed before the suffix is added. Finally, Rule 4 reminds us that if the word you're working with ends in a consonant, followed by a Y, then you change the Y to an I before you add the suffixes. To avoid ending up with lots of double I's in our new words, it makes sense to have an exception to this rule, and to just keep the Y when adding ing. I've nothing against the odd double I myself, and when a root word ends in an I, like ski, taxi, and safari, well, I just love seeing ing just doing its thing. Doing its thing, I, doing its thing.
And welcome back. I hope you found that video useful, and I hope it's reminded you of those spelling rules that I know that you've learnt before. So let's give it a go, shall we? I've got 5 different adjectives here that I think would be good adjectives to describe a Viking warrior that might be able to come and defeat Bjorn. Okay, so I've chosen bold, big, brave, brawny and vicious. Oh, I've just noticed that lots of them begin with B. Some good alliteration there, perhaps for my writing later in the week. So let's think about each of those rules then. I want to be able to add the suffix est. So I'm just going to circle that suffix there to make that really, really clear to you. That's part of our learning objective for today. So if I'm going to add the suffix est to each of these adjectives, I know that I'm going to need to use those spelling rules to help me to do that in order to spell these words accurately. Okay, so the first one there is boldest. Now that links to that rule 1, doesn't it, that we've just seen in the video. I can see it ends in 2 consonants here. L and D are consonants. Can you remember the rule? That's correct. When I turn that into a suffix, into a superlative, I just have to add that suffix on. So I know bold becomes boldest. Okay, let's have a look at the next one then. Now I can see the word big has that short vowel sound followed by a consonant. Okay, so it ends in a short vowel sound followed by a consonant, the I sound. So I know that means I need to double that consonant. So I know if I'm going to add a suffix on the end, and I know the suffix that we're thinking about to turn it into a superlative is the est suffix. So I know biggest is going to be my superlative. And you can see I've had to double that consonant, double the letter G in order to make sure it's spelled correctly. Okay, let's have a go at the next word then. Brave. Now again, I can see a different rule needs to be applied here. This was rule 3 from the video, wasn't it? I can see that this adjective ends in an E. So can you remember the rule? That's correct. I know that I need to drop the E before I add my suffix. So I can see there's not 2 E's included in there. Okay, brave becomes bravest. Okay. Now, brawny, that means somebody who's quite big built and quite muscular, perhaps. Somebody who's brawny. Now I can see that adjective ends in a Y. So that's another spelling rule that I'm going to need to include there, isn't it? Can you remember? That's correct. I know that I drop the Y and change it into an I before I add my suffix. So I know it's going to be brawniest. So you can see each of the 4 rules there have been applied. I know that sometimes two consonants, I just need to add the suffix on and make no changes. If the word ends in a short vowel sound with a consonant, I need to double that consonant before I add the suffix. If the word ends in an E, I know I need to drop the E before I add my suffix on. And if my word ends in a Y, then I know I need to change it to an I before I add my suffix on. I've purposely included this as a 5th one because, like earlier, some words we just can't add that suffix on. It can't have viciousest because I know it just doesn't sound right. So instead, my superlative is going to be most vicious. Okay, so each of those 5 rules there, I've had a good go at applying. So now it's your turn. In the Google Drive, you will find this worksheet, which has a list of adjectives that you might use to describe some of the warriors that are going to defeat Bjorn. I want you to have a go at applying those spelling rules that you've just watched from the video and seeing if you can turn each of them into a superlative using that suffix est. Have a think of those spelling rules. Which ones do you need to apply? There will be some exceptions that just don't sound right. Don't get caught out. Okay, pause now and give it a go. Okay, welcome back. How did you get on? Shall we check? Let's have a look at each of your answers and see how did you get on. So if I'm going to add that suffix est to tough, I know it's going to become toughest. And I know because I can see it ends in those 2 consonants there, I just need to add est on. Did you spell it correctly? Mark it as you go. See how you got on. Nasty, oh, I can see that ends in a Y, so I know the rule that I need to apply there. Nastiest. There we go, change the Y to an I before I add my suffix. Oh, look, same rule for crazy. I know, change my Y to an I before I add my suffix. So I've got craziest. Oh, look, strongest, 2 consonants at the end there. I just need to add my suffix on, don't need to do any changing. Oh, wild. Wild is going to become wildest. And again, it ends in 2 consonants there, the L and the D in wildest. So I know I just add my suffix on in order to make it spelled correctly. Powerful, powerfulest. Doesn't sound right, does it? So the superlative for powerful needs to be most powerful. The warrior that is the most powerful is the superlative there. Cruel. Cruel. Now I know cruel becomes cruelest. So again, I just add that suffix there, cruelest. Wicked. Again, now I can see it's got my consonant here, so wickedest. Oh, Don't spell that correctly. Wickedest. There we go. Hopefully you're marking as you go along. Unfair. The unfairest of them all. There we go. Mean becomes meanest. Oh, is it going to let me type down there? Meanest. There we go. And again, no changes to the spelling there. Add the suffix on. And then finally, vicious. Now that needs to become most vicious. We've talked about that one already today, haven't we? How did you get on? Hopefully you've checked your spellings as you go. So the reason that we've been doing that has been all leading up to a very fun activity that I know you're going to enjoy. Today, I want you to draw your very own Viking warrior. Okay, and this Viking warrior that you are going to draw is going to be the Viking warrior that you think can defeat Bjorn. This is going to be the bravest, the strongest, the craziest, most powerful, most wisest warrior that there is. Okay, and this is going to be the person that's going to apply for the job. So I've had a go at drawing my picture. I didn't really draw it, but you are going to draw yours. I've had a go at creating my picture here, and I've come up with the superlatives that I'm going to use to describe my warrior. I've got 5. I'm sure that you can come up with many more than that. Okay, use the superlatives that you've just done to help you, and I'm sure you can even think of more powerful ones than that. I want you to draw the warrior that you think is going to defeat Bjorn and label and annotate with all of those superlatives to begin describing that warrior. Okay, have fun. I can't wait to see your amazing drawings. Check your spellings of your superlatives as you go. Have fun, guys. See you tomorrow.